You wake up. Your phone vibrates on the nightstand. Not a call, not an urgent reminder, just the feed. You scroll, your fingers gliding. Your eyes catch a flash. A heated argument has already erupted under an old friend's post. Someone you used to share beers with in the schoolyard. Are you with them? A stranger types. Don't you realize they're destroying everything? Your friend replies sharply. Each word feels like a punch to the chest. You feel a heat rising, first in your stomach, then in your temples. Your pulse quickens. Your fingers instinctively reach for the keyboard. You're already typing a response. But then you notice you haven't even read the post. It wasn't the text that angered you. It was the mere fact of conflict. And this isn't a mistake. This is a business model. Do you feel it? It's not just anger. It's your brain high on dopamine, which surges when you perceive a threat to your side. Algorithms know anger keeps you on the feed longer than joy, 7 times longer. Have you done this too? Of course you have. Everyone does. Because every platform isn't a place for communication. It's an arena. And you're not a spectator. You're a gladiator. And the more fiercely you fight, the more advertisers pay for your attention. Imagine, technology created to connect the world is now tearing it apart. You can watch a sunset in Tokyo in real time, but you can't calmly discuss the elections with your neighbor. He doesn't say hello anymore. Do you notice this? This isn't an accident. This is a result. The system teaches you to see an enemy in everyone who thinks differently. And it does this through language, through words like betrayal, threat. They are destroying us. Your fear center, ancient as a reptile's, instantly activates. It silences reason. You stop thinking. You start attacking. But here's what changes everything. You can leave the arena. Not tomorrow. Now. In the next 5 minutes, you'll learn how algorithms turn your rage into currency. How media fuels polarization like gasoline. And how your brain, yes, yours, can be retrained. This isn't theory. This is a survival guide. Because as long as you're angry, you're not choosing. You're consuming, and they're counting profits. John Gary was sitting in a Facebook office in Menlo Park when he first realized it. He was a moderator, one of those who decided what stayed on the feed and what disappeared. One day, a colleague showed him an internal report marked sensitive data. It clearly stated, posts with moralizing language, phrases like, "this is wrong," or "they betrayed us," received 37% more reach. John asked, "What if it's a lie?" The answer was simple, almost mechanical. As long as users click, it's not a lie. It's content. At that moment, he understood. They weren't just showing news. They were encouraging rage. Because rage brings in money, billions of dollars a year, as Frances Haugen's leaks later showed. And this system wasn't broken. It was working exactly as intended. Do you feel it? Every time you get angry at a headline, someone gets a check. The media says, "We inform." In reality, they sell your reaction. MIT Media Lab research shows anger causes 7 times more interactions than joy. Sadness causes almost none. But anger? Anger makes you stay, argue, come back. Algorithms know this. They don't just notice your anger, they cultivate it. Through words, through colors, through the selection of images that make your pulse quicken. This isn't a glitch. This is a business model. In 2020, 68% of the most viral political posts in the U.S. contained words that directly activate the brain's fear center. Betrayal, threat, destruction. This isn't an accident. This is the result of thousands of A/B tests. Each word is like an alarm button. You read it, and your brain stops analyzing. It switches to survival mode. And that's when you become the perfect consumer. Not of information, of outrage. Anger isn't a side effect. Anger is a product, packaged in a headline, sold for a click. But money is just the tip of the iceberg. Algorithms go further. They don't just capture your anger, they build a wall around you. Gradually, imperceptibly, day by day, they remove everything that challenges your beliefs. Eventually, you find yourself in a world where everyone thinks like you, where every post confirms you are right, and they are dangerous. Pew Research Center studies show by 2023, 64% of Americans reported that their social media almost entirely reflected their own views. This isn't a choice. This is architecture. And in it, you are not a resident. You are a commodity. Have you done this too? Of course you have. Everyone does. But now you know, every time you click in anger, you pay. Not with money, with attention. And attention is a currency for which $86 billion are paid annually today. And as long as you're angry, you're not choosing. You're working for the system. Sarah Mitchell from Columbus just wanted to talk. She wrote under a post, "Maybe both sides are right about something." Just 5 words. Quiet. Honest. And that was enough for a childhood friend to text her, "If you don't pick a side, you're on the side of the enemy." A week later, silence. No texts, no reactions, not even a hello on the street. Do you feel this? This isn't just a rift. This is punishment for trying to be human. Day after day, algorithms remove everything that doesn't confirm your point of view. Day after day, they feed you increasingly harsh, increasingly extreme posts. You like one, tomorrow you see 2. A week later, a conspiracy theory presented as an investigation. And a month later, you can no longer distinguish between truth and just content that keeps you on the feed. Algorithms don't lie. They just don't ask if you want the truth. They need you to stay. And the angrier you get, the longer you pay with your attention. But here's the trap. You think, I'm not like those fanatics. I look at different sources. And that's precisely why you lose the most. Research by the MIT Media Lab showed those who seek balance are 31% more likely to lose friends on social media. Why? Because in a world of barricades, neutrality is betrayal. You're not just not with us, you're betraying both of us. And algorithms encourage this because conflict increases app time by 52%. And 52% is billions of dollars. Have you done this too? Of course you have. You tried to explain, to persuade, to compromise. And what did you get in return? Silence. A block. An accusation of betrayal. This is the echo chamber. Not a wall of brick, but a wall of approval. Everything you see whispers, "You are right." And everything that challenges disappears. Not because it's a lie, but because it doesn't sell. But why do you believe this lie? Because your brain is already primed. Deep inside in the fear center, it doesn't differentiate between a wolf in the savannah and a post that says they are destroying us. For it's the same threat, and it shuts down reason. It activates survival. And as long as you're in survival mode, you don't choose, you react. And that's exactly what algorithms want. Remember, neutrality today is not weakness. It's an act of resistance. But resisting alone is like shouting into a hurricane, because the system isn't just observing, it's learning. And it knows the more you seek truth, the more alone you are. You look at the screen, and your palms sweat. Not because the room is hot, but because an alarm just went off in your brain. In a Chicago lab, Dr. Lisa Hartman observed this firsthand. Her subject, an ordinary accountant, 34 years old, who drank coffee in the mornings and paid his taxes, read a neutral text about healthcare reform. His prefrontal cortex, the center of reason, worked calmly. Then she showed him a post. They want to destroy our way of life. And everything changed. The fear center in the brain, the amygdala, flared up like a warning light in a nuclear power plant. Activity soared to levels neurobiologists only see when a person encounters a snake in the grass. 0.3 seconds, and reason is shut down. You no longer analyze, you defend. Do you feel this? This isn't weakness. This isn't stupidity. This is your brain, honed over millions of years of evolution to survive in the savannah, not on Facebook. It doesn't distinguish between a threat in the bushes and a threat in a headline. For it's the same. And here's where the trap begins. Your brain is already biased. It seeks confirmation for what you believe and erases everything else. This is called confirmation bias. And those who think differently, it doesn't see as people. It sees them as a monolithic crowd, enemies. This is the outgroup effect. On social media, these ancient mechanisms work on turbochargers. Every post is like a blow to a tribal boundary. You're not arguing about politics. You're defending your tribe. And the algorithms? They pour gasoline. Because tribal warfare is the best content. Have you done this too? Of course you have. You read a post and immediately knew this is the enemy. Not because you read the arguments, but because your brain had already shut down logic. And this fear is not a metaphor. According to the Pew Research Center, by 2023, Americans feared political opponents more than terrorism. 58% say, I'm afraid of them. In Arizona, 41% of parents stopped attending school meetings. Not because of work, not because of laziness, because of fear of encountering them. Do you feel this? This isn't paranoia. This is an engineered reality. Day after day, post after post, headline after headline. You are taught to fear, because as long as you're afraid, you don't turn off the screen. But the brain is just a battlefield. And the main directors of this spectacle sit in news studios, where truth was once sought, drama is now played out. Where explanations were once given, now shouts. And all for one thing, for you to stay. Because as long as you're watching, you're a commodity, and your anger is currency. It was 2016. On CNN, two experts were yelling at each other as if they were saving the last piece of bread in a besieged city. One gesticulated wildly, the other turned crimson, veins bulging in his neck like ropes. The host tried to interject, but his voice was drowned out. You watched, not because you wanted to understand healthcare reform, but because your heart was beating faster, your palms were sweating, and you didn't change the channel. Later, in leaked editorial meeting notes, it all surfaced in black and white. Too boring, too few clicks. The format of calm discussion was killed. A rule was introduced: if guests aren't arguing within 5 minutes, replace them. Politics ceased to be a topic. It became a fight. And you weren't a spectator. You were the stakes. Do you feel this? These aren't news. This is media dramaturgy, a Hollywood script embedded in the broadcast. Instead of analysis, conflict. Instead of nuance, a hero and a villain. Media doesn't explain. They paint the world in black and white, because gray doesn't hold attention. And Nielsen data hits you squarely. The conflict format keeps you engaged 39% longer. 39% isn't a statistic. It's the time it takes for an advertiser to inject into your brain 3 times that you need a new loan. By 2018, at Fox News and MSNBC newsrooms, a word was coined: outrage bait. Headlines like, "They dared," or "This is the end of America." They don't inform, they explode, and they work. Internal records show such headlines increase click-through rates by 55 to 70%. Because your anger isn't a byproduct. It's a commodity. Packaged with an exclamation mark. Sold for your time. Have you done this too? Of course you have. You clicked because you needed to know. But in reality, because something inside you clenched. You felt a threat, and the system detected it. But here's where everything breaks down. This shouting doesn't stay in the studio. It spills onto the streets. In 2022, 41% of voters in Arizona stopped attending school meetings. Not because of work, not because of laziness, but because they were afraid to meet them, neighbors with whom they used to drink coffee on the porch. Online radicalization is already in your yard, in empty halls, in the silence behind the fence, in the way your neighbor looks away, when you step outside. Do you feel this? This isn't politics. This is a spectacle that you pay for with your world, and as long as you're watching, the walls grow, and you still think you're choosing. Imagine a quiet suburb in Arizona. Morning. The sun is just rising over the cacti, casting long shadows on the paved sidewalks. Linda Carter stands at the school door. In her hands, a thermos of coffee and a folder of documents. She's supposed to speak at the parent meeting, but her feet won't move. Her fingers grip the folder handle so tightly, her knuckles turn white. She looks at the entrance and sees familiar faces, people she used to drink coffee with in the mornings, discussing kindergartens and pumpkin pie recipes. Now they are political opponents. She's afraid, not of a fight, not of shouting, but that someone will say, "Are you with them?" and everything will fall apart. In 2022, 41% of voters in Arizona did the same. They simply didn't go. Not out of laziness, not out of indifference, but because they were afraid to meet a neighbor, just because of who they voted for. Do you feel this? This isn't online. This is your life. This isn't just fear. It's a consequence. For years, algorithms have fed you content where they are traitors, fools, a threat. Phrases like, "they are destroying us," received 37% more reach because Facebook wanted it that way. You liked, shared, got angry, and your brain remembered they are dangerous. Not as an idea, as people. The neighbor who used to just dislike football is now an enemy of your children's future. Local communities collapse not because of ideology, but because of fear, cultivated in the feed. Fear that activates the brain's fear center more strongly than logic. Have you done this too? Of course you have. You stopped saying hello, stopped inviting, stopped seeing a person. You only see a label. Think about it. This has never happened before. Even during the height of the Civil War, Americans didn't avoid school meetings out of fear of their neighbors. They argued, fought, sometimes even came to blows. But they weren't afraid, and now they are. For the first time in U.S. history, more people fear political opponents than terrorism. 58%. This isn't polarization. This is social paralysis. You see the other in reality, and you lose your voice. Or you start shouting, like on CNN, not to understand, but to win. Do you feel this? This isn't your fault. This is the system. But what if the problem is deeper than hostility? What if the very idea of news is already dead? In 2018, editors at Fox News and MSNBC began using the term outrage bait. Headlines like, "They dared, don't inform." They explode. And they blur the line between truth and fiction, not on screen, but in your brain. Ready to see how this happens from the inside? You're already in the trap. But there's a way out. And it starts with one question. What if I don't have to choose a side? October 2021. A congressional hearing room. The air is thick with tension. Frances Haugen takes her seat. In her hands, not a bag, but a stack of documents that will blow Facebook open from the inside. 100,000 pages, internal reports, graphs, charts, numbers that send shivers down your spine. They knew, she says. They knew that algorithms fueled hatred. They knew that Instagram harmed teenagers' mental health. But they remained silent. Because the revenue, $86 billion. And anger is the best driver of engagement. You watch this, and your palms sweat, not from the heat, but because truth has ceased to be a value. It has become an obstacle. Do you feel this? This isn't a glitch. This is a business model. Algorithms don't see truth. They see reaction. If a post causes anger, it gets reach. If fear, even more. If moral outrage, it skyrockets. A lie? It doesn't matter. What matters is that you stay and buy and click and share. That's why headlines no longer inform. They entice, like a piece of meat over a wolf pit. You see, they dared, and you can't. Look away. Your brain's fear center activates instantly. It silences reason. You stop checking. You start believing. Have you done this too? Of course you have. Here's a number that makes your heart stop. False news spreads 70% faster than truth. Why? Because lies are brighter, sharper, louder. They hit emotions. And emotions are currency. In 2020, 68% of the most viral posts contained words that trigger the brain's survival mode. Betrayal, threat, destruction. This isn't content, it's bait. And you bit, not once, but every time. Do you feel this? The line between truth and lies is no longer on the screen. It's erased inside you, in neural circuits where fear silences logic. You no longer choose what to believe. You react, and the system detects it. But there is a way out. It starts with a pause, with the question, is this true or just bait? You can choose not to share, not to like, not to shout. You can simply stop. And in that pause, reclaim your reason, and with it, your choice. All of this is not a chain of coincidences. It's a closed loop. Algorithms capture your anger because it pays the bills. Media turns it into a show because conflict keeps you glued to the screen. Your brain believes in the threat because for it, they are no longer people, but a danger in the bushes. And you retreat into an echo chamber where every post whispers, you are right. And reality? Reality is silent. Your neighbor no longer says hello. Your friend blocks you. The school is empty. And the deeper the fear, the more strongly you cling to your own. The cycle closes, accelerates, becomes a machine. And in it, you are not a victim. You are fuel. But remember Sarah from Columbus, the one who wrote, "Maybe both sides are right about something," and lost her childhood friend. A year passed. She sat in her kitchen, flipping through old photos. She and Amy by the lake, kids in a boat, sun in their hair. And suddenly she pressed right. Not to argue, not to prove a point. Just, hi, I miss you. Amy replied 2 days later. Me too. They didn't talk about politics. They talked about the rain, about the new cafe on the corner, about how her son had once again dropped the cake at his cousin's wedding. This isn't reconciliation. This is a breakthrough. Because true dialogue doesn't require agreement. It requires presence and courage, the very thing algorithms try to kill. Do you feel this? This isn't weakness. This is resistance. Listening. Today, it has become an act of rebellion. Rebellion against algorithms that want you to hate. Against media selling hostility as content. Against your own brain, which seeks confirmation, not truth. Democracy was never about consensus. It was about sharing space with those who think differently, even when your body tenses up as if for a blow. As John Gary, the former Facebook moderator, said, the system doesn't break people. It uses their humanity against them. But what if we stop being fuel? What if we just stop and ask, are you a human being? Before hitting reply. Can you do this too? Of course you can. Now a question for you. Do you believe it's possible to leave the arena, or are we forever trapped in it? Write in the comments, there is a way out, or arena forever. This choice is already in action. Either you surrender to the system, or you start to break it. And remember, every time you choose a question instead of an accusation, curiosity instead of a label, presence instead of escape, you're not just saving relationships. You're restoring democracy. One human connection at a time. There is a way out. It starts with you. Now. In the next message, in the next breath, in the next hello.